Did you know that the biggest Ponzi scheme in history was orchestrated by a man named Bernie Madoff? Picture this, a man who was once a respected titan of Wall Street, an influential financier, a chairman of Nasdaq, who turned out to be the mastermind behind an epic financial deception. Bernie Madoff, the name that would become synonymous with the insidious world of Ponzi schemes. But what exactly is a Ponzi scheme? It's a fraudulent investment operation where the person behind it, in this case Madoff, promised his investors high returns with little to no risk. However, instead of generating profits from any real business, the returns to the early investors are paid out from the investments of new entrants. Madoff's scheme was extraordinary, not only for its longevity, but also for its scale. This wasn't a game of thousands or millions, but billions of dollars. His client list read like a who's who of the world's elite, from Hollywood celebrities to major corporations, all drawn in by the allure of consistent and abnormally high returns. Madoff was a maestro in the art of deception. He had a knack for making his investors feel special, feel secure, and most importantly, feel profitable. This was his playground, and he played it well. He sold the dream of unparalleled wealth, of financial security, and people bought it. They invested their trust, their hopes, and their hard-earned money into his hands. But behind the curtain of this financial wizardry, there was no magic, just a man desperately trying to keep his house of cards from crumbling. It was a classic case of robbing Peter to pay Paul. New money was used to pay off old investors, creating a cycle that could only continue as long as new investors kept pouring in. But how did such a massive fraud go unnoticed for so long? How did Madoff manage to fool the world for over 16 years? The search for answers takes us deeper into the labyrinth of lies and deception that was Bernie Madoff's empire. Madoff was no ordinary fraudster, he was a master of deception. A seasoned financier, Bernie Madoff was a charismatic figure, exuding an aura of respectability that was hard to ignore. He was a high flyer in the world of finance, a former chairman of Nasdaq, a man whose name was synonymous with success. His charm and credibility were his powerful weapons, lulling investors into a false sense of security. Madoff's silver tongue was matched only by his adeptness at playing the game. He knew how to navigate the financial landscape, convincing people of his investment prowess. He promised high returns and delivered, at least on paper. His clients, many of whom were seasoned investors themselves, never suspected a thing. They were taken in by his charm, his reputation, and the illusion of profitability he so skillfully crafted. His empire thrived, attracting more and more investors. All while, behind the scenes, his empire was built on a house of cards. Inevitably, like all Ponzi schemes, Madoff's operation began to unravel. The year was 2008. The world was on the brink of a financial calamity, the likes of which hadn't been seen since the Great Depression. This global economic recession sent shockwaves through the financial world, and it was this seismic shift that started to expose the cracks in Madoff's once seemingly invincible operation. As the recession deepened, more and more investors began to feel the pinch. They turned to their investments, the ones they had entrusted to Bernie Madoff, as a lifeline in the storm. They sought to withdraw their funds, to secure some semblance of financial stability amidst the chaos. But there was a problem. The money they thought was theirs, the returns they believed they had earned, simply didn't exist. Madoff's scheme, like a house of cards, relied on a delicate balance. He needed a constant inflow of new investment to pay off the old ones, to keep the illusion of high returns alive. But with the economic downturn, new investors were hard to come by. The balance was upset. The house of cards began to teeter. As more and more investors sought to withdraw their funds, Madoff found himself in an impossible situation. The money was not there. The high returns he had promised were nothing more than smoke and mirrors, a cruel illusion that was rapidly dissipating. The pressure was mounting. The walls were closing in. The illusion of the Madoff investment empire was crumbling. The reality, the harsh, unforgiving reality, was coming to light. And it was a reality that would shock the world. With no way out, no more tricks up his sleeve, Bernie Madoff did something that no one, absolutely no one, saw coming. He confessed. He admitted to the biggest Ponzi scheme in history, a fraud that had cost his investors billions of dollars. And then the unimaginable happened. Bernie Madoff confessed. Madoff's confession sent shockwaves through the financial world. It unveiled a deception so profound it threatened the very integrity of global finance. Once the smoke cleared, the legal proceedings began in earnest. Madoff, the man who promised golden returns, was soon to be subjected to the cold, hard iron of justice. In June 2009, he was sentenced to a staggering 150 years in prison, a term befitting the magnitude of his crime. Yet the verdict offered little solace to his victims. Lives were shattered, fortunes lost, trust irreparably broken. The financial industry too was left to grapple with the fallout, the echoes of Madoff's deceit reverberating through its halls. Regulations tightened, safeguards were put in place. But the scars remained, a grim testament to a betrayal unparalleled in its audacity. The Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme will forever be remembered as a stark reminder of greed, deception, and the devastating consequences of financial fraud. So, what can we learn from the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme? At the heart of this scandal was a man with a deceptive charm, Bernie Madoff, a New York financier who masterminded a massive Ponzi scheme. His promises of high returns enticed investors, but these were empty promises, as he used funds from new investors to pay off the old ones. The scheme, which spanned over a decade and a half, eventually crumbled in 2008, revealing the grim reality of the billions of dollars lost. The aftermath was devastating, with Madoff sentenced to 150 years in prison and countless investors left in financial ruin. The key takeaway from this? Financial literacy and caution are paramount. Always scrutinize where your money is going, and above all, be wary of promises that seem too enticing. As the old adage goes, remember, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is.